welcome back, and thanks. We had a little interlude there. Thank you, Leah. For those who are only just catching this second part, we were forced by our wonderful friends at ESCOM to have a little break, and then things, the system got a little bit upset with me. So thank you for sticking around, Leah. I will let you get on with your afternoon in a moment. Look, your journey so far has been amazing, and I cannot say it enough how much you really embody everything that I'm trying to achieve by interviewing people like yourself with the Legal Unicorns podcast, because we're in this wonderful business of law, and we are which globally has always been determined largely by the big brands, and you know, the goal for every lawyer was to work for the big brand. And in the last 5 years, certainly, I've seen a change, a welcome change, and then COVID was a big advocate of it, of legal services needing to be, just changing, just massively changing. And listening to people like yourself, but listening to the way you operate and the way you think is really inspiring, and I'm so pleased that others are going to get to hear this. I mean, you've got tens of thousands of social media followers already, but you might have a few more after this, I think, but which is good. But I want you to give out that at the end if we can, and obviously we'll have it all on the links below as well. Anyway, so your journey has taken you through, and now, a short while ago, you joined the team at Legal Interact, who I met at the Technology Festival up in Johannesburg. Tell us about Legal Interact, and what do they do, and how is it changing the legal landscape?
Yeah, so Legal Interact, I think when I came here, I mean, even in my book, I literally wrote about them. You know, my boss and I laugh about this all the time. Where we talk about, hey, we actually, intersected in some way without knowing, even before now. But predominantly it was known for its practice management software. So part of my work when I started was around actually, when you meet a pretty cool business, but they're so inward, It's like, okay, maybe you do need a Leah. They're like, that'll make you go out there, because I think the value in that is, and I mean, we know this, as you pointed out in terms of numbers, we now live in a world that actually, you can say whatever you say, but yes, it needs to drive value, but there's no point in you talking if you're literally talking to yourself. So it's important for you to have visibility, So what we are and how we are, I was actually part of the journey in terms of helping us identify the core in terms of who we are as a brand and bring that out into the world. But in short, we're literally as our tagline says, LegalTech solutions for the legal community, because we're literally like a legal technology hub house. We literally build tech for lawyers, and it doesn't matter where you are. It's not only just for traditional lawyers with our practice management solution. It's for the young ones who want mobile apps as they move around. How do I build on the go, It's for the in-house teams around, how do we manage our matters? How do we project manage how we deliver services? It's around contracting, how do we draft? How do we sign? How do we send out contracts? How do we actually manage them outside of traditional, contract, post-execution? What does that look like? How do we manage those obligations? So it's very broad. It's think of it as a house that's filled with crazy people with crazy ideas, building stuff for lawyers so that lawyers can actually do better. When I think of us, I think of the quote that says, the ones who can change the world are the ones that are crazy enough, literally all about building and improving how lawyers do, no matter where they find themselves. And probably that's why I'm a better fit for them in this sense, in terms of my background, in terms of, I consider myself as a legal tech generalist. because I don't solely focus on one area. So you find some people who focus on, let's say, contract management or e-discovery or mathematics or whatever it is. I don't. Mine is understanding everything and how everything connects. So me being here, I think it's like one of those divine type of things that happen, because it gets me excited, whatever it is that we're doing, whatever it is that we're building. It truly gets me excited for the legal market.
Yeah, and a global legal market at that, not just not South Africa. I've got a couple of questions. Obviously, they've clearly hired the best person in South Africa for that role. I mean, you are.
Say that louder. I hope my boss will listen. Actually, I'll make him listen to this part.
I was going to say, we'll send this.
Say that again.
Yeah, I was going to say that the legal recruiter says that you are the best person for this job and deserve a pay rise. But I mean it in the sense that clearly, what I'm picturing is this team, and I've met some of them, the very clever tech guys sitting in the background coming up with ideas, but it's not always easy to get that voice out. You know, I know from my involvement with our legal tech startup, umbi.com, which is more so for the career side of things and for the delivery of those skills. It's hard to explain sometimes in just a short period, and to get the audience and go, this is why it's going to be good.
Get them excited, yeah.
And get them excited, yeah. And then suddenly you find yourself 3 hours later still explaining it because you're still. And then it does this, and then it does that. But I do, and I remember talking to one of your colleagues up in Joburg, and I just wrote it down there, where you talked about the billing on the go for some of the younger lawyers, and that fits in with what we're doing with Umbi, which is basically understanding that, you know, the very clever researchers show that 3/4 of the legal profession will be working for themselves effectively in the next decade. And it will be platforms like Legal Interact where they can bill on the go, and Umbi where they can get their next ping from their next piece of work coming through. That's really going to define how legal services and lawyers work, which makes me humongously excited for them, just by being able to be able to utilize the technology to run their own careers and run their own lives, which I love. But do you also get people coming to you with ideas and saying, would you be able to build me this? Is that something that Legal Interact do?
We don't do, but we do get people literally who are doing something or whatever it is. But at this point, like I said, you know, we build multiple products, and I hope people are keeping an eye out on our socials. We're launching 2 new products in the coming couple of months that, in my view, are going to shift things, not only in South Africa but on the continent. Game changers, 3 in collaboration with someone, if I count that one. But, you know, crazy things are happening this side.
Are you able to tell us what they are?
Probably the latest one that I think will probably get people a bit excited. Definitely going to share it because we're launching it now on the 27th on Freedom Day. So we partnered with some access to justice folks, LegalTech. They're more on the spectrum. You know, typically we used to segregate law tech and legal tech. So they are more on the law tech side around direct assistance to average citizens in South Africa. So we built them a bot, a chat bot that's going to be integrated everywhere. The first South African AI lawyer. It's going to be amazing. It's going to do crazy things. And I'm actually so excited about that. I hope you publish this either after.
We'll publish it whenever you want us to. I think
because we're launching the 27th.
Yeah.
So it's like 2 weeks from now. Yeah.
Well, look, I mean, as I said earlier, thanks
maybe
to our
like
friends.
A day before or something. Yeah.
We'll definitely discuss that. I was going to say, thanks to our friends at ESCOM, we've now got a 2-part show anyway. So the first part can come out beforehand, the second part can
Yeah,
come
the
out
second part.
So,
Yeah.
so thank you, Cyril and our guys.
See? The
See,
universe always knows.
well, see, it's always put a positive spin on these things. You see, this is the sheer bloody mindedness of making it work. But is that, sorry? Did you say that was with? Is that Law for All or one of those guys?
No, it's legal and tax. Yes, so they are in the access to justice space. They provide literally direct consumer legal services and tax and health. So it's a huge bracket, but they serve a very huge market in the country. So I'm pretty excited to see the rollout for that. Because for me, like I said, as a lawyer, beyond the gravitas, it's literally service delivery, helping people. Now imagine something like that helps someone literally go to WhatsApp and say, hey, I need 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a conversation. So think of ChatGPT, but just with the segue of a whole lot of legal knowledge, South African legal knowledge, a whole lot of gateways and assistance from the folks at Legal and Tax. So it's a great collaboration from our side with them. And I'm really, really looking forward to seeing how that will help and grow, in the future.
Yeah, I think it's. As they say in England, I doff my cap. I congratulate companies like Legal and Tax, and I know there's the other brand, Law for All. And I think it's Lipco Law for All. I don't know them personally, but I've seen them around. I really do admire these companies that are really bringing the law services to those people and communities.
Average citizens, it's important.
Average citizens who really can't access these things, and perhaps shy away from it for fear that it would be expensive. It's amazing, and the fact that you guys can facilitate that, and you're building these bots, and you're building this technology, taking the industry so many leaps and bounds forward. It's incredible to see.
And by the way, that's like a tiny little project. There are other things that we're doing that we're gonna share, as a company pretty soon. So I'm pretty excited about what we're doing.
Yeah, well, maybe you can tell me off camera. I'm very excited. I think, it really got me thinking while you were explaining that as well, because about our own product, Umbi, and the possible collaborations that come through with technology. There's obviously the obvious sort of API drop-ins that certainly we've utilised on Umbi, but I think, and I'm sure you agree as well, the collaborations between legal tech firms and platforms.
Oh, it's incredible.
It's great to see, and everybody's, like you said earlier, really open to that conversation of just going, yeah, you're doing that and we're doing that, and
because it's about impact. It's about impact. It's about driving change. It's not an ego thing. It's not a. Yeah. It's literally about, this is the end goal, and how can we work together in order to actually get there. It's incredible.
It's about
the community
impact.
Is incredible.
Sorry to interrupt. It's about impact, not control. Whereas business, so much more of business over the last couple of decades I've been in the world, it's all about how much can we control, how much can we win, how much can we have. Whereas much more about business with the implementation of tech is about impact. How many people can we impact together? And that is a massive game changer. Just as a sidebar, I actually met a gentleman the other day who was down here on holiday from London, and he owns a platform very similar to ours. And we just sat there and just discussed how the trials and tribulations of getting it off the ground. How could we work together, perhaps? How could we support each other from a technology perspective? There was these kind of conversations don't normally happen with your competitors. But with the tech side of things, it seems to be very different. I really want to jump in very quickly and talk to you about the global tech hub that was announced on the socials yesterday. That you've become the African advisor to. please, I mean, congratulations. It looks amazing. This is a global outfit. Could you tell us more about that, please, and how you got involved and what is it?
Thank you. So it's the Global LegalTech Hub. It's based in Spain. So literally their mission. So think of how we would view hubs, like traditional business hubs, in terms of support, in terms of networking, in terms of whatever a traditional, let's say, startup or business would require for assistance in order to, level up. It's in that scheme of things, but because also, they dub themselves global. And what I appreciate the most, ever so often you get these conferences, which really peeves me off. Conferences, events, concerts, whatever it is, they'll call it a world tour or a global event. Africa's not in there,
Or
so
worse, let me just interject, or worse, it's someone in Dubai or someone in Paris or someone in London saying, this is what Africa needs.
Africa, yeah.
And I get so frustrated because I'm like, how about you do what I did and come and live here and move here and pay your taxes, and then we'll talk about what you know about.
And then we'll have what you know.
My small rant about doing business. Everyone should commit to coming to Africa and living here, and then you can talk about it. But
they really should. So in any event, so I bumped into them, when was it? I think 3 years ago, before the actual appointment. They had asked me to speak somewhere, and I think they enjoyed the insights and so forth. So the first initial appointment was actually last year. When they started, they're like, hey, we think you can add value in terms of what we're doing, and part of us understanding and helping the global community is getting insights literally from the people on the ground. There's no point in you saying you want to help the global community or whatever it is, and yet you're not speaking to people who are in it, who are in the trenches, trying to build or whatever it is that we're doing. So in any event, last year was great, and then earlier on this year, they're like, hey, we liked you. Do you want to continue? I'm like, yeah, sure. Anything, to keep pushing the African legal tech agenda. I'm very, very, very bullish on that, around people understanding, well, just as good, just because we're literally by location, when Africa does not devalue a talent, it does not devalue the technology that we're building. So it was important for me, and that's why I'm part of these things, to actually put a spotlight on the continent, not only in terms of legal insight, but what we're doing as a continent. But the flip side of that is also learning. I don't think you can be stagnant. I don't think there will ever be a time where I will say I know everything. And I think it would be arrogant, it would be stupid, it would just be like, what are you doing with your life? If you come to a point, you're like, I know everything, then why are you living? So part of me also joining was understanding from a personal perspective. And by that I mean not reading from newspapers, not reading press releases or whatever it is, but literally just hearing from people in other parts of the world. What are they doing? What are their challenges? What are their insights? What are their best practices? So that we can bring it here, see what works, see what doesn't work. And I'm not talking about the cut and paste approach. No, I'm just talking about augmenting the learning around whatever it is that's happening internationally in such a way that it actually makes sense for us. Because what I often find is a lot of people internationally, they do what they do, it's successful in that particular market. They come to South Africa with a cut and paste approach, and they think it'll work, and it won't, because they're different. The challenges are different. We have infrastructural issues, we have ESCOM issues, we have so many things.
We lose power. We did half an hour ago, yeah.
So how you approach, how you problem solve, how you provide solutions, it needs to be unique to the country, the region, because we say Africa, it's not only just South Africa or Nigeria or one of the big markets on the continent. It's also around understanding that we operate differently, even in terms of how we do business. I mean, even in South Africa itself, I mean, think about it. The folks in Cape Town operate very differently from us here in Joburg in terms of how they view. And it's the same. Huge difference. And it's the same, even, with each African country. So I'm very, very grateful for that opportunity to actually provide my own view, my own perspectives. And beyond just for work, there's a reason why I'm intentional about traveling across the continent, understanding, meeting new people, building a network, so that I'm also not, because I understand like my pull, or rather gravitas, that I don't abuse it to such an extent to say I know everything, whereas I actually don't. And that's why I'm very intentional about my networks that I continue to build on the continent, moving around on the continent, understanding how do they do this, how do they work like this, so that it helps not only us in terms of scaling, but generally. If I say I'm an expert on sub-Sahara Africa legal tech, I need to literally come with something that I know of, not just something that I'm thumb sucking.
I couldn't agree more. I think you're absolutely spot on. So do you think that they'll be hosting events on the continent? Do you think that it'll be there'll be things that you can learn sort of best in class from other people in other countries that you can then potentially say, oh, that might suit this market in Africa better? How is it going to work? How is it going to benefit people?
Probably. At this point, I can't 100% say, because literally the announcement was yesterday.
No.
So
probably unfair of me. Sorry. What's the agenda?
So we have yet to sit. I'd really be misspeaking if I'd say, hey, at this point, this is the plan. But whatever it is, I have no doubt that it's going to impact us. Because, for example, last year, part of the exercise, what we did was global mapping around literally legal tech startups, the people also within the tech space, where they fit in and so forth. And that's a useful exercise, particularly from a information sharing perspective, from learning from each other, from seeing where can the overlap come. From a business perspective, also scaling. There's some reasons that are also easier to scale into versus, let's say us going to the US or whatever it is, So there's a lot in terms of just from an inside perspective that we gained last year. So I can't say this year what we're going to do.
But it's
I'd really be misspeaking.
Researching, information gathering, information sharing, network building. Amazing. There's a couple of things that you just mentioned that I wanted to just briefly add on to. One of the things that I've learned about doing business on now, having lived on 4 different continents and moved around quite a bit, you just touched on it there. It's something that I haven't always remembered myself, so I would implore those listening to learn from you, and I reckon I've probably done it about 70% of the time, which is to ask the questions when you go into new markets. How does it work here? How do you want us to work? It's very important if you're moving into new markets is to go, okay, so tell me how it works here. And what I've found, and again, we'll just speak of one of the African nations, which is South Africa, which is obviously where we both are. This is not a straightforward market. You just touched on it there. The way that people do business in Joburg is very different to the way that people do business in Cape Town. Differs to Durban, differs to Bloem, differs to Mpumalanga, and it goes on and on and on. And it's such an incredibly diverse country in that sense that and then you haven't even stepped into the other 53 countries in Africa who are very, very regional and very, very different depending on where you are, which makes it an enormous, exciting challenge. And the other thing I was going to mention, you just spoke about it then, about the beginning when you were talking about the hub, about the fact that so many of these things that pertain to Africa and African legal and African business don't even really include anyone from Africa. One of the reasons why we launched UMBI was because of that reason. And very quickly, our research company did a big research project in Zambia about 4 years ago now, 4 years ago, well before COVID. And in this beautifully produced 100-page document that was on the legal market in Zambia, I read through it and I went, there's over $100 million that was generated in Zambia for legal services last year, and none of that was spent on Zambian lawyers. And I was livid. I was like, all of that money wasted. And not only that, well, not wasted, sorry, I'll take that back. All of that money spent and I just sat there and went, but there's talented lawyers in Lusaka. There's talented lawyers. Brilliant lawyers who could and that's what launched UMBI, was in the sense that one of the big defining foundations of the platform, which was is to take away person's personal details, where they live. If they've got the skills and experience, they will be found for the project or the contract. If they can do the job,
take away that barrier.
Take away
it's
any
perception.
Potentially unconscious or conscious bias, but it is a perception and it's a misconception. Well, congratulations on that. I really mean it. It was amazing to have someone like you being able to spearhead that. I can't wait to find out more about it and watch your journey with them as well. I want to ask one more question before I let you go. It's probably an impossible question, so I'm going to apologise up front. But
you're still going to ask it anyway.
Yeah, I'm going to ask it. No, because it's about the industry, and I think there's no doubt that the industry, we're talking about trillions and trillions of dollars generated globally, that's always been working one way for about 1,000 years, and charging one way, and the career path was just one way. You get partner or in-house, And now what's happening now is mind-boggling. Are you able to say, or do you think there's one thing coming through that LegalTech will change, or is there one thing that you think that one piece of legal tech that we should keep an eye out on? Or I suppose what I'm asking is, what do you think is next for the next year or so? What do you think will be the biggest adoption change? What do you think we should keep an eye out for?
I mean, it goes without saying, probably generative AI. We're literally at the boom right now of it, and it's in my view, it's going to shift and push legal tech startups to be more creative around how they do what they do. So it's no longer going to be more straightforward. I'm thinking literally about how a friend of mine now also identifies, he's a lawyer. He now identifies as a prompt engineer. I'm thinking about how yesterday I saw a Twitter thread on someone, no technical knowledge. He prompted Chat GPT into building him a no-code business. Literally, prompt engineering. And when you think about that, and you think about the frustration that most lawyers feel, most lawyers who think different, and how there are probably thousands and thousands, millions and millions of Leahs out there in terms of lawyering who think differently, who and the moment they catch on, oh, I can actually go here, if I tweak this, if I do this, I can actually start building. Because the biggest thing, particularly on the continent, around actually starting a tech startup is the costs of tech, of building, And if you can do away with that, it means that there's a lot more that will be required out of legal tech startups in terms of how they innovate, how they choose to push their products, who they push their products to, and so forth. So for me in my head, as I think, looking at the market, looking at some of the players that I know on the continent and where the headspace is at, that's the change that I'm seeing. From a professional perspective, I think we're still going to see the boom of more alternative legal careers within the space. where you find someone being a legal project manager, legal ops, knowledge management. I mean, they've always been there, but they've never come to a point where it's such a huge thing where people are actively looking for it, where they're actively, you know, these roles opening up, departments building up within firms around, oh, let's build, you know, technology in-house, or let's do this, or hey, how do we project manage our matters in a way that actually makes sense for our clients? It's becoming more aggressive at this point. So I really do see a decentralization of legal services in that end.
I couldn't agree more. I think it's perfect. Yeah, I think that there is so many. I often give talks to some of the law schools here in South Africa, and I often talk to the students about the fact that they're at the beginning of a journey that used to be just two pathways they could take, and now it's a whole squiggly mess of careers that are open to them, and they will be able to have a passion for the law and be part of it without necessarily even being a lawyer. They can just be part of the direction of the new direction of that industry. So I think you're absolutely right there. But it's great to hear. I think the one thing I often talk to lawyers about when it comes to technology, and I'm sure you say the same thing because you are a living, breathing embodiment of it, is don't be scared by technology. Embrace it. And take control of it and show and see it where you can be better by using it. And I think that's it. But look, I want to thank you so much for your journey, for telling us and our listeners more about you and about where you've come from and about your challenges, the way that you live, the way that you think. It's really inspiring to think to hear about how you challenge yourself, how you reflect. It is an incredible, and it's so good to know you and to talk to you and see you on this incredible journey, which I myself am looking forward to your next step and watching, following your socials. And on that, how does one connect with you? What are your social handles, and what's the best way to interact with you?
I'm one of those who's everywhere, so they can literally just search my name, Leah Molatseli, on any platform. They'll find me there. Yeah, on LinkedIn, preferably LinkedIn, if they're looking for a bit more updates, more industry stuff, more legal tech based type of knowledge. All the others are just sometimes me being human. But I do a couple of Twitter threads here and then, in terms of legal technology. So that might be of assistance. But if they're looking more from a professional perspective, more from a how do I overcome or whatever it is, LinkedIn is their best bet.
Brilliant. I advise everybody to connect with you. I think just before I let you go, I just want to thank you again. You are the embodiment of what of the people that we're trying to interview for Legal Unicorns podcast, which is those in the law that are doing things that are different across the African legal market, that are thinking differently, working differently, and really are going to, if not already the leaders in the industry, are going to be the next generation of leaders. So, Leah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Have a wonderful weekend, and thanks for your time.